Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Talk Kashrus, presented by the Kashrus Awareness Project in conjunction with Torah Anytime. Today I am privileged to be joined by Rav Tzvi Ortner, Rav of Linas HaTzedek in Brooklyn and Director of the Technology Department at the OU. Thank you, Rabbi Ortner, for being here.
My pleasure.
Now what does it mean to be the Director of the Technology Department at the Orthodox Union? What does that involve?
So technology, and the term of technology that people, why do we think maybe about cell phones or stuff like that?
Right.
But technology, our world is full of advanced technology today. And specifically when you come to Hilchot Shabbat and Yom Tov, living in the city, the only time we actually engage with any type of malachas today is actually when we deal with the kelim, the appliances that we have in our kitchen. So dealing with technology means that we're trying to analyze the issues in the field, trying to give response to people that calling in and asking questions how to deal and use today appliances with advanced technology. The next step for it is Baruch Hashem, where we've been involved for the past few years in trying to create solutions so people can actually use technology to fix the problem with technology. And actually,
Do you actually work with manufacturers as well to create the appliances in a way that would be user-friendly for Eshmerah mitzvahs on Shabbos?
Yes,
and Yom Tov?
definitely. So working with the manufacturers, there's a few different levels to us. We've been working with several manufacturers on small appliances, big appliances, and different products. What I think the best deal that we were able to bring to the community in the past few years was the relationship with GE, General Electric, GE appliances, that they went beyond their imagination to be able to provide a full, perfect solution in both, in the halachic level and the convenience level, which means a solution that actually taking care of all the issues involved in appliances usage in the same time, provide a perfect quality, automation, and all of that interesting stuff.
And it is, I would say, it's somewhat of a chiddush that such a large global company would be willing to work with what I'm assuming is a very small demographic compared to the wide world out there, right? The world of from people who need Sabbath mode type of appliances is as much as it's important to us and it's vital to us, but we're a small percentage compared to the larger population, right?
Absolutely. So the answer is both. First of all, yes, it's a big siyata d'shmaya, and then hopefully you should be able to, to continue this relationship. But at the same time, it's depend a lot of the consumer, and as much education and as much as that we have people, customers, appliance dealers, and people involved in actually demanding the companies to improve their Shabbos mode and their service. Companies are usually listening to the demand and they try to accommodate the demand.
So it sounds like this is something, the technology concerns as relates to the from consumer is something that over the years has become more of a concern and more of a need for someone like you as the head of the technology department to really take a leading role in addressing the issues. What would you say is the major difference between, let's say, today and several decades ago when it comes to home appliances and the challenges that they present to the average from person?
Right. So the difference is in both aspects. In other words, from the appliance itself, an oven today is not an oven like 50 years ago. And an oven, a fridge today is not the same like a few years ago. And the differences are in the cooling system, and the defrost system, and the sensors, and different computers and being involved into every oven and every refrigerator. I always say that the people, the engineers working with them in GE, they said, you're looking to advance, I'm just looking to pull you back.
Exactly.
And get your
You'd rather go back to the old way.
Exactly.
And they're trying to make it as modern as possible.
So you said it right. Actually, our work is to reverse them. And somehow, over Shabbos at least, to get back to 3 years ago, 4 years ago, which used to be more or less an acceptable, way of using refrigerators and ovens. Going back about 34 years ago.
So a quick rundown. What are the appliances, without getting into the detail first, what are the appliances in a home that are of concern when it comes to Shabbos and Yom Tov? We're talking about refrigerators, ovens, what else?
So in general, when we talk about a Jewish home today, we can divide it basically into three sections. It's going to be the big appliances, which can include ovens, refrigerators, water heaters, all kind of stuff like that. It's going to be the small appliances, which is going to be water heaters, ovens. It's going to be, all this little stuff that you find on top of the counter, kind of appliances. And then you're going to find yourself within the different world of thermostats, cameras, all kind of stuff. Today's home automation and all this type of fancy sensors and stuff like that, which is going to be, it's kind of a different conversation. What we are looking for in general is usually to make sure that people understand that loy ho keho, meaning you can just put together all of them and say, you walk into the house, you don't do anything, so of course a fridge and an oven is also nothing. There's so much involved in both, in the toitzor and in the action. In other words, there's differences of how you do things. There's a difference whether you walk into something or you open up something or you're actually causing a sensor to work or stuff like that, number one. Number two, there's a big difference what actually is happening. Is that a fire that's being turned on? Is this a recording? Is it just a compressor? Is it just a voltage change? There's a lot of different aspects to every specific question and nidoin that we were talking about.
So everything has to be judged individually, and people shouldn't extrapolate from one appliance to another and things like that. Basically, we have to know the facts on the ground.
Exactly.
So let's start for the beginning of this conversation. Let's take one thing at a time. Refrigerators. The average refrigerator that someone buys today, what are the concerns as far as Shabbos and Yom Tov, and what are the innovations that you came up with to address those?
Right. So before I'm getting into the details, I just want to react to what you said before. Is we talk about in a very general conversations. So we have to understand that there's all type of opinions and there's all different, everybody should ask his rov and deal differently with them because there's so many details and so many parts going on into it. So obviously when we are going to a solution, as we're going to talk about soon, we're trying to cover all angles possible to get to a 100% solution.
You're saying from a halachic standpoint?
From a halachic standpoint. Being said that, there's room to rely for some people, some poskim, and some Rabbonim, and some, different places or different approach in Halacha. So whatever we're going to say, we're just going to kind of present the facts. But we're not going to say whether, X, Y, Z is motor, also somebody is Eshmerah Shabbos, other one is Mechalel Shabbos. This is not the conversation, right?
Got it.
Good. So, talking about the refrigerator is basically the old kind of refrigerators, talking about 40, 50, 60 years ago, which actually, when the fact came out, used to be like an icebox in all time, right?
Sure.
But once this changed and we have a refrigerator at home, every poisek at the time were busy. What do we do? Can we use it or not?
Right.
Talks about all the boys coming at this, all the boys.
And what was the concern at the time? Assuming there's no light that's turning on when you open the door.
So the concern, first of all, the conversation was about the light.
It was about the light?
It wasn't a regular way to turning on the light.
Right.
Don't forget that 20 years before, there was a conversation whether turning on a switch is an issue or not. It was also something new. Fire from the time of the Mauritian, where, with the two stones and then with the fire.
It was this is a new development.
Right? So there was always a conversation how we look at it, right? So the light was a conversation, number one. The other conversation was the compressor, which is basically a machine that pump gas in and out, especially main gas into the machine to keep it cold.
And that would be triggered by opening the door because you're allowing warm air in? Is that the problem?
Right, so what's important is that they used to have a thermostat, not like we have today. They used to have like these mechanical thermostat, which used to be either like a little gas pipe that react to temperature or a little metal that react to temperature. So the conversation was separately. First of all, what is going on in that little pipe? What is going on in that little metal? Is this an issue? Are we doing something? And assuming that we're not doing anything, so when you open the door, you're reacting on the thermostat, you're not doing anything, and then the compressor is turning on. So it's already like a second step,
so
which gets
only
into
groma. It's only groma.
So the conversation was these two big nidoinim. Number one was to identify what's exactly the issue and the problem with causing a compressor to go on. And secondly, how you cause it to go on, which means you open the door, you're letting the hot air, and then the thermostat, which is not an issue, is causing the compressor to do. So the results was a conversation, what's the issue, and how you do it, whether it's a groma or maisa. There was these two main conversations at the time, which, to be honest, most of the poskim actually, and I'm sure everybody of us still remember our fathers or grandfathers, used to be makpid to open the door only when the compressor was on in the old time. And that got changed. The joke was because, they used to give the children to open up the door, and the children would just go up, so they knew that you can open the door any time. But the truth of the matter is that afterwards, mainly based off of Zman Technology's psak, was that it's not a problem because of that two reasons. Number one, Zman was confirming that the compressor is only at the Rabbonim, getting into the conversation with electricity in general, what's the definition of it, whether it's the rise or it's the Rabbonim v'chulei. And then that the fact that it's based on And a mechanical thermostat, it's only a groma.
So it's only a secondary step.
Exactly, which is...
So you're saying the tziruf of both of those.
Both of those was the basis of the Pshalom Zalman's Psak and Siman Yud, in to paskin that you can open the refrigerators freely and finishing up, or in Shabbos, we should open the door with no concern.
And is there a difference between a fridge and a freezer, or is it the same?
I believe it's at that time it was the same.
At that time it was the same.
So what happened was that this heter was slowly taking over
Klal Yisrael.
Klal Yisrael, but at the same time, the Metzius just got changed.
Because there were advancements.
Exactly.
Refrigerators were becoming more complicated.
Right. So what happened is actually on both sides. Meaning the end results was not just a compressor, was, for example, a defrost. Which means the defrost system means in the old time, if you still remember, they used to unplug sometime the fridge just to let the ice
melt, right? Yeah.
So what they have today is a defrost system that there's a little fire, a little heat element in the back that actually defrosting slowly the ice, which in the beginning also wasn't a problem because it used to work on a time base. So it's again not a problem, you're not doing anything. But over time, they used to attach the defrost cycle, what's called adaptive defrosting, meaning it's adapting on something, either a compressor on time, or as many times you open and close the door, which means you are actually eventually causing it to happen. It could still be a groma, it's still going to be a secondary step because it's based on the compressor on time or sometime opening and closing the doors. But talking about the ice, it talks about actual fire on one hand. Actually in the new Madura is like putting a note saying, I heard about this new defrost and I'm not talking about it, kind of. I guess it was too old to get.
It was too new then.
I guess. So this is the end result of it. On the other hand, this little thermostat became digital, which means it's not anymore just like this little pipe or this little metal, it's a computer. What's the definition of a computer in Halacha? Right? You're writing something, you're recording something, you're putting information, you're telling the computer to do something. So these two major changes that happen in the refrigerator, again, we don't say it's also or it's Hilchot Shabbat, everybody should look and make his decision based on his psak, but the facts were changed. So what Klal Yisrael is actually relying on an old psak and the Metzius were changed, it's a time for,
reevaluation.
Exactly.
So let's say you made this reevaluation and you've obviously stayed up to date on the developments and advancements of all the major refrigerator manufacturers. What eitzah, what solution have you come up with for those who are concerned about this? First of all, should people be concerned today about the fact that, let's say, Reb Shlomo Zalman's heter would not be applicable to our refrigerators now?
Right. So what's very important is just for people to be knowledgeable and make a mature decision when it comes to buying appliances. I used to go on for Kashrus, and I remember one time I went in some place, whatever, and I was looking to eat something, and I saw a place that was kosher, but it's open 7 days a week, So I called up, I said, "You kosher?" He says, "Sure." He says, "Who is giving this supervision?" He says, "Self-supervision. We're doing it ourselves." Everybody laughs when it comes to food, right? When it comes to appliances, you'll be surprised to hear that many manufacturers are actually coming out with Shabbos mode on their own. Which means the goy, the engineer that's sitting somewhere in Korea or whatever the place is trying to imagine what could be a problem for the Yid and somehow to come up with a solution. So this is something that we have to understand it's unacceptable.
So you have to know, just because you hear Sabbath mode
it doesn't
mean that it's a Sabbath mode la halacha.
Exactly. Right? And I can give examples for an hour on different details.
That's an interesting detail.
That's number one, right. Number two, there is certification and there is agencies that giving certification for Shabbos mode, so everybody has to make sure to know what his standards and what he wants, what's considered the Shabbos mode and what type of either heterim or psakim that they're relying on, right? So this is another thing that a person has to be mevar, has to look into it from a technical perspective, from a rabbinic halachic perspective, and ask a shaila and make his own decision. The third option, obviously, is what we have been working for the past 3 or 4 years, and we came up with this Shabbos skipper for refrigerators, and then a bit later, Shabbos skipper for ovens.
Right.
This is where we went and we said, regardless on what our opinion in, what the psak is, we are going on a 100% solution. We don't cut corners on anything, and we're just making sure that it's going to be working
Lechatchila
on the holidays. Again, all we're asking and what we're trying to educate people is get the education, collect the information to yourself, ask a shaila, and then make whatever decision you make.
So describe what this does. What does the Shabbos keeper do on a practical level for a refrigerator? Someone is concerned about triggering the thermostat, turning on the compressor, the defrost. What does the Shabbos keeper do?
Right. So when we go through this list of 4 or 5 solutions that we're talking about, so the defrost, I guess, is the most,
Biggest concern?
biggest concern in terms of halacha, as you're talking about really age. So we fully we put it on a full time-based cycle. So there's nothing to do with you opening and closing the door. When you talk about the compressor, we talk about what they call the silt system in general, which include into the dampers and all the different components into making sure all the different temperature in the fridge and different component, in the fridge, in the freezer, in the drawers or whatever, different level of temperature. We automate the entire system, so it works on kind of a pre-program cycles. So again, you're not really causing any changes when it comes to opening and closing the door.
And none of these changes impact the effectiveness of the appliance?
So I can tell you that it was an easy journey. And the way we're doing it is on 3 levels. We do lab work, lab testing, then we have some people having field tests with actual units. And then we had version 1, version 2, we're already up to version 2.5 and version 3. And Baruch Hashem, I can say that we are improving ourselves more and more and more. People should expect maybe not to have the 100% way of working, which should not affect any of the quality of the food and of the temperature. But I think at this point we can comfortably say that our system worked perfectly for most of the comparable refrigerators in General Electric.
And just to clarify, the Shabbos keeper that you developed, is that something that a consumer would have to buy when they purchase the refrigerator from a retailer? Is it something that could be put in once they buy the device? Once they have the appliance already in their house? How does that work? Yeah,
it's a good question. It's a plug and play technically, so it can be bought together with the appliance. Most of the Jewish dealers out there are selling it. You can buy it from GE directly. You can buy it from Zman Technologies.com on the website. You can plug it in now if you bought the appliance, 2 years ago, whatever.
And is it compatible with every type of major refrigerator that someone would buy? How does one know whether it's compatible or not?
So we're talking about GE appliances.
So we're talking about only GE right now.
Only GE right now.
Okay.
We can say that 98% of their refrigerators are already comparable. I will suggest, if you have any concern or any suffix or whatever, to call Zman Technologies, or you can check on the website. We have a list of all the models that are comparable. Most of them are comparable and should work perfectly.
So all these items are produced under the Zman brand, correct? Zman Technology?
It's powered by Zman Technology, but just for the comfort of people, it's actually manufactured by GE Appliances.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this was actually made by GE?
Exactly. It's made here, made in USA, in Louisville, Kentucky, under high supervision.
But that's also comforting to know. So it's actually being made by the manufacturer of the product.
Correct.
And they obviously want to maintain the highest standard of compatibility and effectiveness.
Correct.
So, this is, it's amazing to think that one of the largest manufacturers of appliances in the world is kind of playing ball with the frum community and trying to make it work. I understand that it's always about the bottom line, and they want to make money, but afal pikein, it's amazing what you've been able to accomplish by working with them.
Definitely. You wouldn't even imagine how much time and people is actually involved.
Invested in this?
In that product, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yes.
I could just imagine the conversation around the table with the engineers and the people from GE trying to explain to them the halacha concerns.
Exactly. And today, some of them are actually bigger than me. We can have some conversation. One of them can say, "Hey, Rabbi, this might be a groma."
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
You have to get them into the kailul and really start, get them to learn Shulchan Aruch and the Noise Kalim.
Definitely.
Very interesting.
So we're expanding actually, when we talks about ovens. And eventually we talk about, we're getting into separation for 2 categories for Basar B'Cholov. So, and we're talking about that. And then we have conversation talking about kashering stuff and, Passover, Salfkin, all of that. So they pretty,
they're very familiar.
Yes.
So we discussed refrigerators. Anything else to discuss about refrigerators before we move on?
Yeah, so one more important part is when it comes to the sensors. So what we accomplished over here is different than anything else available in the market, is that we are fully deactivate all the sensors involved.
Where are there sensors in a refrigerator?
So generally speaking, there's temperature sensors, obviously.
Okay.
And then we have the door sensors. Now, those sensors usually might be something that you're not going to know or you're not going to see. Let's say you open the door. 5 minutes from now, it's going to beep.
It beeps, right?
So you have to realize that it means that when you open the door,
You
it
trigger
will register
something.
it. You trigger
Right.
something that count down until 5 minutes from
Right,
now, right?
right.
Now you can deactivate it in two ways. You can say, okay, so I'm going to have a countdown, but the countdown is going to say to the computer, but don't beep.
Mm-hmm. But you're still triggering something.
Exactly. What we did actually is there's actually a cut of floor to the door sensors. So
Uh-huh.
nothing is being registered actually to the door.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we can get into the conversation, but again, our goal was we're not cutting corners. We're trying to get to a 100% solution,
Mm-hmm.
which means, for example, that even let's say some people are makpid, like in the old days, to open the door only when the motor is working.
Right.
In our solution, you can avoid that too, because we actually automating the seal system, the compressor system
Mhm.
also. So you're not
Right.
affecting that too.
Right, got it. Okay, so refrigerators, that's a pretty good summary for our viewers who want to understand what the issues are. And like you said before, I'll reiterate that obviously everyone should speak to their Paisik and their Rav and get direction for what's proper for them to do. Thank you, Rabbi Ordner, for this fascinating conversation about refrigerators as they relate to Shabbos and Yontif usage. Emir Hashem, the next time we meet, we'll discuss ovens and the innovations that you've come up to address those concerns as well. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, and thank you.